Good morning, everybody. I'll call this meeting of the Agriculture Conference Committee meeting to order. I'm Representative Paul Anderson of the House, along with my co-chair, Representative Rick Hansen. And let's begin by going around the table here, take a couple of minutes and do some introductions and get to know each other across the aisle here. And let's start down there on my right. Go ahead. Keep it short, but little introduction.
Sure. Hello. I am Representative David Gottfried in House District 40B, kind of the Roseville Shoreview area of things. I don't know all that we're supposed to say, but I am the most junior member of the House. So it's a delight to be here, and I'm excited to get to work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Representative John Burkle, District 1A, far northwestern corner of the state, Roseville, Kittson County, Pennington, and Marshall County.
Representative Andy Smith. I represent District 25B, downtown Rochester, surrounding neighborhoods. I am the co-vice chair with Representative Harder of the House Agriculture Committee.
Good morning, Representative Bobby Harder. I represent 17B, which is the counties of, or parts of Sibley, McLeod, and Carver. I'm happy to be here, and when I'm not here serving as state representative, my husband and I, we farm. Thank you.
Megan Mullenbeck, House Research.
Chair and members, my name is Ken Savory. I'm the nonpartisan fiscal analyst for the Ag Committee.
Peter Strohmeyer, I'm the House DFL Committee Administrator.
Rick Hansen, State Representative, South St. Paul, Inver Grove Heights, Newport, St. Paul Park, part of Cottage Grove, and Northern Gray Cloud Island Township.
Hi again, Rep. Paul Anderson. I represent areas of west central Minnesota, and I'm here. My neighbors are all planting soybeans today, so it's a great day, and I think in a week or so we'll be hoping for some rain, but great weather and good weather for the farmers to get their work done. Welcome, everybody.
Mark Nicely, House Republican Committee Administrator.
I'm Eric. I represent the Greater St. Cloud area, and I'm the Senate Ag Chair.
I'm Nick. I'm the Senate Ag CA.
Rob Kupek, I'm Senate District 4, Clay, Becker counties. I'm in Moorhead. I am the vice chair of the Senate Ag Committee.
I'm Laura Painter. I'm the nonpartisan Senate Agriculture Committee.
I'm Eric Olson, also nonpartisan fiscal analyst for the Senate Ag Committee.
Well, thanks, everybody. As you probably know, we do not have a number yet, don't have a target yet, so today we're going to be just getting things going, do a kind of a side-by-side, look at the same and similars, and rely heavily on our nonpartisan staff. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will not be taking any oral testimony, at least today, and we did offer the opportunity to submit written testimony. We did get several letters in. They're available. I'll just run down the list of who we heard from. Minnesota Farm Bureau, Minnesota Farmers Union, Minnesota Corn Growers, the Nature Conservancy, the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, the Association of Minnesota Counties, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, the Minnesota Biofuels Association, Growth Energy, the Friends of the Mississippi River, the Minnesota State Ag Centric, and the Northern Agricultural Center of Excellence, Minnesota Crop Production Retailers, the Minnesota State Historical Society, Second Harvest Heartland, Channel One Food Bank, and the North Country Food Bank, the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, Minnesota Cottage Foods Producers Association, the Minnesota Grain and Feed Association, and Farmward Cooperative, and a couple of letters in the Main Street Veterinary Service, and one called Basil's Cradle in the St. Louis Park area. So again, that was written testimony submitted by the deadline yesterday. It's available for you to peruse at your leisure. Well, let's get into our side-by-side this morning. We'll go to our nonpartisan staff, the folks that deal with the numbers. I think we'll call first on Mr. Ken Savory.
Chair and members, for the record, Ken Savory, nonpartisan fiscal analyst. I'll be covering the change item spreadsheet that's in your packet. In the upper left, you'll see it's titled 2025 Agricultural Broadband and Rural Development. House File 2446, it's the conference committee comparison, and then it says change items. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, the timestamp is the 5th of May, and it's 5:08 p.m. The main columns on the spreadsheet are comparing the Senate position versus the House position. And so the Senate position is columns D through letter J, and the House position is columns K through letter Q on the right-hand side. So we'll start first with the Department of Agriculture and go through the change items. The first one is related to the Soil Health Financial Assistance Grants reduction, and that's on line number 7. And the Senate is carrying a $50,000 reduction in the first year, and the House is carrying a $640,000 reduction in FY 26-27, and the same identical $640,000 reduction in the tails. Line number 8 is the wolf compensation appropriation. The Senate is increasing that appropriation by $100,000 in the first biennium and $100,000 in the tails. And the House is increasing the appropriation by $236,000 in FY 26-27, and then $236,000 in the tails. Line number 9 is the elk crop damage compensation appropriation. The Senate's increasing that by $100,000 in FY 26-27, and also $100,000 in FY 28-29. And the House is increasing the appropriation by $250,000 in 26 and 27, and $250,000 in the tails. Both House and Senate are carrying the operating adjustment as recommended by the governor on line number 10 for the Department of Agriculture. It's broken into 2 pieces. One piece occurs in the Protection Services Division, and the second piece occurs in the Administrative Division, which we'll cover in a moment. But the numbers for that are $1,344,000 in FY 26-27 and $1,848,000 in FY 28-29. And so both House and Senate are the same on that particular proposal. Line number 11 is a Senate-only item. It's a governor's recommendation around the climate coordinator position. It's moving it from the administrative division to the protection services division. So you'll see an increase of $300,000 in each biennia for that particular item, and then a reduction correspondingly in the administrative section. Line number 12 is a increase to the meat inspection program at the department. For the Senate, it's $702,000 in FY 26-27 and $900,000 in FY 28-29. The House increase is $1,700,000 in FY 26-27 and the identical $1,700,000 in FY 28-29. Line 13 is a House-only proposal related to county ag inspectors. It's establishing an appropriation of $1,500,000 in FY 26-27 and $1,500,000 in the tails. Line 14 is another House-only item related to biofertilizer innovation and efficiency. It's an appropriation of $1,217,000 in 26 and 27 and $2,100,000 in FY 28-29. Line 15 is the Biosolid and Sewage Sludge Technical Evaluation Panel report. It's a House-only item. It's a $100,000 one-time appropriation in FY 26. Line 16 is related to the Olmsted County Soil Health Program Study. It's $100,000 in the first year in FY 26. Line 17 is related to the restricted use pesticide plan updates that are carried in the House bill. It's a one-time appropriation of $150,000. And then line 18 is a PFAS language alignment that the Senate's carrying, just a language change that was carried by the governor, and that has no fiscal impact, but it's listed on the spreadsheet as a note. And then Chair and members will move on to the Ag Marketing and Development Division of the department. Line 21 is the Farm Safety, Health, and Wellness appropriation. The Senate's carrying a $150,000 increase in FY 26-27 and a $100,000 increase in FY 28-29. The House is carrying an appropriation of $200,000 in FY 26-27 and $200,000 in the tails. Line 22 is a reduction in FY 25 that both the House and Senate are carrying identical proposals on. It's a reduction to a previous appropriation of $3 million, and it occurs in FY 25. Line 23 is related to the Biofuel Incentives Grant Program in Agri. The Senate's carrying a reduction of negative $500,000 in 26 and 27, and a reduction of $500,000 in 28 and 29. Line 24 is another Senate-only provision related to the biofuel infrastructure grant program within Agri. It's negative $500,000 in 26 and 27, and negative $500,000 in 28 and 29. Line 25 is another non-fiscal policy item that the Senate's carrying related to the infrastructure grant eligibility and moves those from 10 to 20 sites. Then line 26 is the livestock processing appropriation. It's a Senate-only item, and it's a $200,000 increase carried by the Senate in 26 and 27, and then $200,000 in the tails. Line 27 is a change to the Agri Farm to School and Early Care appropriation. The Senate's carrying an increase of $300,000 in FY 26-27, $300,000 in the tails. The House is also making a change to that appropriation, and that change is $2 million in FY 26-27 and $2 million in FY 28-29. Line 28 is another non-fiscal impact item that's being carried by the Senate. It's related to the Farm to School Early Care, and it's related to the Federal Administrative Allowance. Line 29 is related to the Urban Agriculture Grant, and the Senate's carrying a reduction to that appropriation of $2,050,000 in the first biennium, and then $1,950,000 in FY 28-29. And then also on line 30, related is a non-fiscal item that's being carried by the Senate related to the urban agriculture eligibility expansion. And then line 31 is another item, non-fiscal, for the Good Food Access Program update. It's changing it to the Retail Food Improvement and Development Program. Line 32 is an update to the cooperative development grants. This changes them from designated spending within the appropriation to an up to allowable amount, and that amount would be now $400,000 in FY 26-27 and $400,000 in 28 and 29. Line 33 is a House-only item. It's the creation of the Agri Works program. It's an $850,000 appropriation in 26 and 27, and a $732,000 appropriation in 28 and 29. Line 34 is another House-only item related to the creation of the Agri Support Program. It's $1,853,000 in 26 and 27, and $1,730,000 in 28 and 29. Line 35 is for the Agri Protect Grant specified for avian influenza. The Senate's carrying a one-time appropriation of $250,000 in FY 26. And the House in the first biennium in 26 and 27 is carving that out of the existing Agri corpus of $450,000, then is increasing money for Agri and that appropriation by $450,000 in FY 28 and 29. Line 36 is the Agri Administrative Allowance that I don't believe either body is carrying, but the governor had recommended that. And line 37 is the dairy reduction. This is another reduction to a previous appropriation. It happens in FY 25 of $1,500,000 for the Senate, and then the House is reducing that by $500,000. Line 38, 39, 40, and 41 are changes related to previous Agri appropriations. Lines 38 and 39 is the extension of previous appropriations for Agri for the Biofuels Infrastructure Program that occurred in FY 22 and 23. These are currently encumbered amounts that are under contract, but it's not expected that the projects will be completed. So the Senate is extending that canceling and then extending that appropriation in FY 26, and so there's no net impact on that, but it's about $1.5 million in FY 26. And then both bodies are carrying on lines 40 and 41 a technical fix to the 2025 Agri appropriation, and the impact, there is no impact but the between the two proposals, but it's about $8.2 million of extension. And then moving down to the admin and financial assistance portion of the department, line 45 is the mail-see grants. The Senate's carrying an increase of $100,000 in FY 26-27 and $100,000 in 28-29. And then the House is carrying a $300,000 increase in FY 26-27 and a $300,000 increase in FY 28-29. Starting on line 46 are several traditional pass-through grants that have occurred in this bill in previous iterations. We'll just go through them quickly. Line 46 is that the Senate's carrying is a $2,000 appropriation to the Poultry Association. Line 47 is for $36,000 to the Minnesota Livestock Breeders. Line 48 is for the Northern Crop Institute of an appropriation of $60,000. Line 49 is an appropriation of $70,000 to the Horticultural Society. Line 50 is an appropriation to the Center for Rural Policy and Development. It's $50,000, or sorry, excuse me, $150,000. Line 51 is the Minnesota Turf Seed Council. It's an $80,000 appropriation. And line 52 is Green Seam or Greater Mankato Growth of $100,000. And all those pasture grants are one-time appropriations. Line 53 is an appropriation on the House-only side for the Farm Down Payment Assistance Grants. It's $100,000 in 26 and 27, and $800,000 in 28 and 29. Line 54 is the creation of the milk grant program. It's a House-only item. It's $1,700,000 in 26 and 27, and $1,700,000 in 28 and 29. Then on line 55 is another House-only item. It's the deletion of the Second Harvest Heartland appropriation. It's $3,400,000 in savings in FY 26-27 and $3,400,000 in savings in FY 28 and 29. Line 56 is a carve-out that the Senate is carrying as an up-to allowance within the Second Harvest Heartland appropriation, and it's up to $500,000 each year for the Good Acre purchasing. Line 57 is a House-only item. It's the deletion of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation appropriation. It's a savings of $50,000 in each biennium. Line 58 is the second piece of the operating adjustment for the department. This one's for the administrative capacity in the Administration of Financial Services Division. It's $340,000 in FY 26-27 and $406,000 in FY 28 and 29. Both House and Senate are carrying identical amounts. Line 59 is the second portion of the climate coordinator position, moving it to protection services on the Senate side. So you'll see a savings there of $300,000 in each biennium. And the House uses this line to simply delete the climate coordinator position from the appropriation entirely and doesn't move it. So that's a savings of $300,000 in each biennia for the House. Line 60 is an appropriation to First District Association for dairy processing wastewater assistance. It's $3,100,000 and it's a one-time appropriation. Line 61 is a local food purchasing assistance program. The Senate's carrying an increase of that program of $500,000 in 26 and 27 and $500,000 in 28 and 29. The House is carrying an increase to that of $2 million in 26 and 27 and $2 million in 28 and 29. Line 62 is a House-only item related to a broadband installation study. It's $100,000 in FY 26 and it's a one-time appropriation. And then on line 63 is the 4R fertilizer management report. This is a Senate-only item. It's $50,000 in the first year and it's a one-time appropriation. And then chair and members, you'll see on line 64 are the total change for the Department of Agriculture. Total change for the Department of Agriculture. I won't go into detail here. Mr. Olafson will cover the total numbers at the end, but just wanted to point that out to members. And then Chair Anderson, I would turn it over to Mr. Olafson to cover the remainder of the spreadsheet.
Thanks, Mr. Savory. Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, for the record, Eric Olafson, nonpartisan Senate Fiscal Analyst for the Senate Ag Committee. So moving on to the Board of Animal Health on line 68. Both the Senate and the House have higher amounts for the operating adjustment compared to the governor's recommendations. So on the Senate position, there's $617,000 of additional spending for the Board of Animal Health in 26-27 and $742,000 in 28-29 for the Senate. For the House, it's $714,000 in 26-27 and $714,000 in 28-29, and that's the only change for the Board of Animal Health. Moving down to line 73 for AURI, both the House and the Senate carry the governor's recommended operating adjustment. So $136,000 of additional spending in 26-27 and $182,000 from the general fund in 28-29, both identical for the Senate and the House. There are no change items for line 77 through 79 for DEED's Office of Broadband Development, but I just wanted to tell you the base funding for that program, for that office is $1,001,000 each fiscal year, but there's no additional change items for there. Moving down to transfers, so starting on line 82, so for the Minnesota Department of Ag for transfers, on line 83, this is a House-only provision, so a transfer from the general fund to the pollinator research account. This is a one-time additional transfer to this program of $53,000 for the House in FY26. Moving on down to line 84 for a forecasted transfer increase beginning in FY28. Again, this is a House-only provision of $542,000 total increase of that transfer in 28-29, so it only happens in the tails. Moving to line 85 for the Farm Business Management or MAIL-C program within AGREET, both the House and Senate increased this transfer. For the Senate, it's $250,000 increased transfer in 26-27 and $250,000 in 28-29. The House increases this transfer only in the tails, but by $1.5 million. On line 86, this is another House-only provision. Within AGREET, there's a additional transfer in FY26 of $347,000 for prion research. On line 87, this is a Senate-only provision. This also within AGREET for the Minnesota Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program, or MARL. It's $150,000 in 26-27 from the general fund and $150,000 in 28-29. On line 88, this is a House-only provision for the Heritage Oil Seed Research transfer to the U of M. It's $500,000 in 26-27, and again, $500,000 in 28-29. Moving on down to line 89 for the Agriculture Emergency Account transfer. Both the Senate and the House increase the transfer to the Ag Emergency Account, but they go about in different ways. The Senate transfers $1.5 million from the general fund to the Ag Emergency Account in FY25 with basically an immediate effective date. Meanwhile, the House transfers $4 million from the general fund to the Ag Emergency Account in FY26, and of that transfer, on R21 it kind of walks through, but up to $2 million of that can be used for specific purposes such as testing milk products, poultry products, transfers to the Commissioner of Health for biomonitoring, or a transfer to the Board of Regents to University of Minnesota to develop rapid testing and other aspects. And prior to utilizing the transfer of that up to $2 million, the Commissioner must communicate the intended use and estimated amount of money to the chairs of the House and Senate with jurisdiction over ag finance. So just different strategies for that transfer. Line 90 summarizes the total transfer amounts from the general fund. But combining all the general fund summary, I'll now walk through each department. So this combines the appropriations and the transfers. So on line 94 for the Senate, there's savings to the Department of Ag to the general fund of $3 million, additional spending to MDA of $1.934 million in 26-27, and $2,004,000 in 26-27. For the House, it's savings in FY25 to the general fund of $3.5 million. New spending of $19.65 million in 26-27 and $16.1 $16,104,028.29. For the Board of Animal Health, it's additional spending of, it's the operating adjustments again so I won't repeat myself, but on line 95 and 96, it's the operating adjustments for Board of Animal Health and AURI. And again, no changes on line 97 for Deeds Office of Broadband Development. So for a total net general fund impact on line 100, you can see, I guess line 97's a little clearer initially. So, I mean, line 98, sorry. So savings of $3 million in FY25 for the Senate, new spending in 26-27 of $2.687 million in 26-27, and new spending of $2.928 million in 28-29 from the general fund. To give you, the Senate received a target for FY25 through FY27 of $313,000 of savings in FY25 through FY27, and new spending of $2.928 million in 28-29, and the Senate met those targets. And then the House received targets of $17 million from the general fund in FY25 through 27, and $17 million in 28-29, and the House also met those general fund targets, as can be seen on lines 102. So just moving on down to non-general fund expenditures, these are all Senate-only provisions, and all have matching revenues except for the matching amount of revenues except for the cottage food licensing, which I'll get into, which I'll mention later on. So on line 106, this is a governor's recommendation that the Senate carries for seed tonnage reporting frequency reduction. There's no impact to the ag fund. On line 107, there's a new spending from the ag fund of $450,000 each fiscal year for the grain license fee update, and there's a corresponding fee or revenue to the ag fund of $450,000 for the grain license fee update. On line 108, for the seed potato certification statute modernization, again, this is a governor's recommendation, savings to the ag fund of $40,000 each fiscal year, so $80,000 in 26-27 and $80,000 in 28-29. On line 109 for the milk marketing modernization, again, Senate only, of new spending from the ag fund of $10,000 in 26-27 and $10,000 in 28-29. On line 110, again, the Senate carries the governor's recommendation of new spending from the ag fund for food licensing modernization. Again, there's a corresponding revenue on line 120 that funds this new spending, but new spending from the ag fund of $5.065 million in 26-27 and $5.14 million in 28-29. On line 111, this is a Senate-only provision for cottage foods licensing updates. New spending from the cottage foods account in the ag fund of $20,000 in 26-27 and $8,000 in 28-29. On line and that's the only item that the expenditures don't match the increase in revenue, so I'll mention that shortly. On line 112, for the Senate carries the governor's recommended rural finance authority updates, no direct impact to the ag fund there. On line 113, the Senate carries the agricultural best management practices program updates from the governor's language. Again, no direct impacts to the special revenue fund. And on line 121, with the updates to the cottage foods licensing, this is the only item where the revenues don't match the expenditures. So there's new revenue to the cottage foods account in the ag fund of $716,000 in 26-27 and $716,000 in 28-29. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my walkthrough of the spreadsheet. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chair members, my name is Megan Mullenbeck, Nonpartisan House Research. Ms. Painter and I will be walking through the side-by-side of House File 2446. I will walk through Article 1, which is the Ag Appropriations article, and I will go through the similarities and differences between rider language in this article. There are some slight differences in technical language between the House and Senate language that I won't go over for purposes of this walkthrough. And Mr. Savory and Mr. Olson have already gone through the differences in money and bases. So this walkthrough will highlight the substantive language similarities and differences between the House and Senate's bills. Page R1, Section 1 is the same. And at the bottom of R1, under the total appropriation, the House allows the MDA to use up to 10% of appropriated money for administration costs of awarding grants. Because the Senate language doesn't specify, the default would be that MDA may use up to 10% for competitive grants and up to 5% for other grants. Page R2, subdivision 2, paragraphs A and B are the same. And paragraph C is similar, but the House language allows 2026 depredation appropriation to be spent on unpaid claims from the previous fiscal year. Page R3, D and E are essentially the same. And then Senate paragraph G is the Senate-only rider to provide funding for a climate coordinator. Top of page R4 has similar meat and poultry inspection services riders. And the House language has an additional sentence to encourage the department to seek inspection waivers, match federal money, and offer more online inspections. Then the rest of page 4 is a House-only rider for county ag inspector grants. R5 has 3 House-only riders. H is the Biofertilizer Innovation and Efficiency Program established in the House Ag Policy article. I is a study into the effects of the land's application of PFAS-contaminated biosolids. And J is for a study into the economic and environmental performance of Olmsted County's groundwater protection and soil health initiative. Top of page R6 is another House-only rider to update MDA's restricted use pesticide plan to account for modifications made in the House Ag Policy article. The rest of page R6 is substantively the same. The agri riders on page R7 are similar. The Senate language adds another purpose where the agri appropriation may also be used for commercialization of fiber-based barrier packaging to reduce PFAS usage. Pages R8 and R9 are the same. And on pages R9 and R10 is the farm to school rider. These are similar between the House and Senate, but the Senate allows a portion of this appropriation to be used to match up to 7.5% of federal funds awarded to administer federal cooperative agreements for purchasing Minnesota-grown foods for schools. Page R10, both paragraph 6 are the same. Paragraph 7 is similar. The House language references the current program name, whereas the Senate references the name it changes the program to in the Senate Ag Policy article. Paragraph 8 is the Senate language. Senate language gives permissive up to language to the co-op development grant rider. House paragraphs 9 and 10 on R10 and R11 are House-only riders for the agri-works and support programs that are competitive grant programs to ag-related institutions and nonprofits. Top right of page R11 is a Senate paragraph 9, and bottom left House paragraph 11 are similar riders for a protecting livestock grant program for producers to install measures to prevent the transmission of avian influenza. The House language limits admin costs up to 6.5%, and the Senate language appropriates a one-time amount in fiscal year 2026, but allows the money to not cancel and be available in fiscal year 2027. And most of R12 is the same. And starting on R12 with Senate paragraph C and continuing to R14, the Senate has pass-through grants to various ag organizations. On page R15, the Senate appropriates money for grants to Second Harvest Heartland. The House does not have the Second Harvest Heartland grant, but keeps the Second Harvest milk distribution clause and instead appropriates the money to the MDA for milk distribution. Both have pass-through grant to Region 5 at the bottom of page R16. Top of R17 is a Senate-only rider for grants to Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. The rest of R17 is the same until the bottom of the page with paragraph I, where there's a House-only pass-through grant to First District for a dairy processing operations wastewater treatment project. Page R18 has a similar appropriation to a local food purchasing grant program. Both bodies appropriate the money in the appropriations article, but the Senate establishes the program separately in the Senate Ag Policy article. House and Senate language is similar, but differ slightly in the preferences the department must give and have in awarding grants, and the Senate requires a report to the legislature. Page R19, House paragraph K. There's a House-only grant for a study into the causes for the incorrect marking in the installation of broadband infrastructure. Senate paragraph R is a Senate-only study into establishing an incentive program to encourage the promotion of 4R nutrient management practices. On page R20, there's same sections for the Board of Animal Health and AURI. The Senate Section 5 at the bottom of page R20 is a Senate-only transfer section that allows the MDA to transfer positions, salary money, and non-salary administrative money within the department without advanced approval from OMB. Page R21 is a similar transfer to the Ag Emergency Account. The House transfers the amount in fiscal year 2026 and allows up to $2 million to be spent on avian influenza monitoring, and the Senate would make this transfer in the current fiscal year effective the day following final enactment. The rest of the transfers on page R21 and R22 are essentially the same. The top right of page R23, there's a Senate-only transfer to the Southwest Minnesota State University Foundation for Minnesota Ag and Rural Leadership Program. Then there's a House-only transfer to the University of Minnesota for research into crop contamination by prions deposited by animals infected with chronic wasting disease. Then House paragraph G is also a House-only transfer to the U of M for heritage oil seeds. The last transfer made in the transfer section on page R23 is essentially the same. The cancellation sections at the bottom of page R23 are functionally the same. They would cancel the stated amounts from the same programs at the same time. Page R24 to R28 is a Senate-only section. This is a technical change that would extend the agri transfer from 22 and 23. This would allow MDA to reallocate approximately $1.5 million of agri appropriated funds from fiscal year 22 and 23 that have not yet been expended but are currently encumbered under contract on projects that aren't anticipated to be completed. And then pages R29 through the end of the article are the exact same. This is an even more technical correction to the 2024 Supplemental Ag Finance Bill to clarify the previous legislature's intent to extend agri. And that concludes the Article 1 walkthrough, and to Chair Anderson, I will turn to Ms. Painter to walk through the policy and broadband articles.
Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members, for the record, my name is Laura Painter. I'm the nonpartisan legislative analyst for the Senate. I'll just first point out that the agriculture policy side-by-sides, there are no overlapping provisions. There are House-only provisions and Senate-only provisions. I'll take you through all the provisions starting on page R1 with Senate Section 1. Changes the name of the Good Food Access Program to the Food Retail Improvement and Development Program. Modifies the definitions of economic or community development financial institution and underserved community, specifies that projects must serve underserved communities, modifies the report to the legislature and makes conforming changes. Section 2 on pages R7 and R8 is another Senate-only provision. It makes conforming and technical changes related to the advisory committee for the Food Retail Improvement and Development Program. Senate Section 3 on page R8 modifies the purpose of the Agriculture Best Management Practices Loan Program to support landowners. Section 4 on pages R8 and R9 raises the maximum statutory amount the Public Facilities Authority can appropriate from the Clean Water Revolving Fund for the Agriculture Best Management Practices Loan Program from $140 million to $280 million. Section 5 on page R9 modifies the allowable amount for a grant award in the Livestock Investment Grant Program to equal 25% of the first $200,000 of qualifying expenditures. Senate Section 6 on pages R9 and R10 amends the definition of livestock for the purposes of the Livestock Investment Grant Program to include more species of animals, including aquaculture. Section 7 on page R10 amends the eligibility for livestock investment grants to include tribal governments. Section 8 on page R11 clarifies language relating to family relationships in the definition of eligible farmers for the Farm Down Payment Assistance Grant Program. And then on revisor pages R11 and R12 is House Section 1. It increases the individual grant award amount in the Farm Down Payment Assistance Grant Program from $15,000 to $20,000. Next is Senate Section 9 on page R12, requires noxious weeds inspectors to contact landowners prior to entering their land and provide landowners with a copy of the inspection report. On page R12 is House Sections 2 and 3. It amends the definition of application or use of a pesticide in the pesticide control chapter. It reorganizes the list of uses to put mixing and loading under the other activities category and deletes the pre-application activities category. House Section 3 adds a definition for a handler to the pesticide control chapter for unlicensed individuals who mix, load, and transport a restricted pesticide under the supervision of a licensed applicator. Next is Senate Section 10 on page R13. It amends the PFAS prohibition so the subdivision no longer applies to cleaning products as defined in Chapter 18B and would instead apply to products listed in Chapter 116, which lists products that may not contain intentionally added PFAS. Next is House Section 4. On page R13, it exempts pesticide handlers from the pesticide applicator license requirement and modifies the state's application of FIFRA, which would substantially require MDA to rewrite and resubmit the department's certification plan with the Environmental Protection Agency. Next is Senate Section 11. On pages R13 and R14 includes physician assistants and nurse practitioners in addition to physicians to the subdivision, allowing requests for information about pesticide applications that may have affected a patient under their care. Next is House Section 5 on pages R14 and R15. It establishes the Biofertilizer Innovation and Efficiency Program that would provide per-acre payments to farmers who reduce their application of commercial nitrogen fertilizers and apply an alternative qualifying product, requires the department to conduct rulemaking, and directs them to conduct a study to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. The remaining provisions I'm going to go through are all Senate only. On pages R15 and R16, are Senate Sections 13 and 14, amending the cottage food exemptions for home-processed pet treats. Section 15 on page R16 adds a new subdivision to the dairy law definitions to define the term milk marketer. Section 16 on pages R16 to R18 adds a new section requiring a license for any milk marketer and specifies terms, fees, penalties, and license and permit requirements for licensees. Section 17 on page R18 allows the state veterinarian to issue a permit to certain zoos to import live cervidae from another state if the cervidae are part of a herd that is in the United States Department of Agriculture herd certification program or is subject to equivalent disease surveillance. Section 18 on page R18 and 19 modifies the ASTM specification for the definition of ethanol in the ethanol development section in the agricultural development chapter. Section 19 on pages R19 and R20 adds clarifying language in the biofuel production incentive section. Section 20 on page R20 modifies the definition of sustainable aviation fuel for the tax credit to allow it to be derived from gaseous carbon oxides produced from biomass or direct air capture. Senate Section 21 on pages R20 and R21 amends the beginning farmer loans to state that no loan may be less than $50,000. Senate Sections 22 through 25 on pages R21 to R26 all relate to the beginning farmer tax credit program. None of these adjust the tax allocation amounts. Section 22 amends the definition of beginning farmer to include an individually owned limited liability company or a limited liability company owned by two individuals who are family members. The section also strikes the definition of emerging farmer and inserts a definition for a limited land access farmer. Section 23 modifies the due dates for application and makes a conforming change related to limited land access farmers. Section 24 modifies the dates for tax allocations. Section 25 makes conforming changes related to a report. Sections 26 through 29 on pages R26 and R27 modify loan programs, so loans may not be less than $50,000. Section 26 amends the loan restructuring program. Section 27 amends the seller-sponsored program. Section 28 amends the agricultural improvement loan program. And Section 29 amends the livestock expansion and modernization loan program. Section 30 on page R27 amends the eligibility for the disaster recovery loan program to require that a borrower's total net worth be less than $5 million. Section 31 on page R27 modifies the pilot agricultural microloan program, so it is no longer a pilot program, and loans may be used for purchasing agricultural land. Section 32 on page R28 modifies the Farm Opportunity Loan Program to reduce the purposes of the loans. Section 33 on page R28 amends the eligibility for the Farm Opportunity Loan Program to require that a borrower's total net worth be less than $1.7 million and to allow that amount to be adjusted in line with inflation. Section 34 on pages R28 to R30 modifies the license and examination fees for grain buyers. Section 35 on pages R30 and R31 modifies the grain storage license fees. Sections 36 to 42 modifies ASTM specifications for different petroleum products in chapters 239, which is the weights and measures chapter, and 296A, which is the petroleum tax chapter. That's pages R31 through R33. Starting on page R33, section 43 inserts a new section prohibiting the elective declawing of cats. Section 45 on page R34 contains the repealers. Paragraph A repeals a reporting requirement relating to the biodiesel content mandate that has been implemented. And paragraph B repeals two sections in the Board of Animal Health chapter relating to rabies proclamations and written bills of sale for branded livestock. Section 46 states that except where otherwise stated, the article is effective August 1st, 2025. Article 4 is the Livestock Marketing Agency and Dealer Licensing Provisions. These are all from the Department of Agriculture's policy bill. They characterize this as technical changes and modernizing the statutes, providing more clarity around bond claims. I won't go through this article section by section. That starts on page R34 and goes to page R39. Starting on page R39 is Article 5 relating to seed potato provisions. These all came from the Department of Agriculture's budget bill relating to seed potatoes and enforcement of seed potato provisions. Some of the sections here exist in rules currently, and these are listed out in the repealer in section 28. Article 5 starts on page R39 and goes to page R65. Article 6 starts on page R66. This is food handler licensing provisions. These are mostly from the Department of Agriculture's budget bill. raises license fees, and makes other technical changes. Sections 15 to 19 relate to cottage foods. These are Senate provisions. I'll just go through those in detail. Section 15 on page R79 allows cottage foods to be delivered by mail or commercial delivery and makes conforming changes. Section 16 makes conforming changes to the cottage foods exemption section. Section 17 sets the annual registration fee at $30 for all exempt cottage food sellers and makes conforming changes to the cottage foods exemption section. Section 18 on page R80 makes conforming changes to the cottage foods exemption section. And section 19 on the same page adds a new subdivision that requires the commissioner to adjust the limitation on sales for the cottage foods exemption every 2 years in accordance with inflation. And that concludes the policy walkthrough.
Thank you. That was a lot to go over. Thanks. So a lot of things to hash over and come to agreement on. Any questions from any members? We really going through this quickly. We'll get a deeper dive into it as we get into this more. Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just one thing that jumped out to me in the House review of the administrative fees at 10%. Any quick logic behind that, or was it just a dart thrown at the dartboard?
Mr. Savory, can you speak to that?
Chair and members, the House bill includes a provision allowing the department to incur 10% of grants as administrative costs. It's language that's carried within the bill, and it's been proposed by the governor in a variety of other policy areas, and the House decided to include that provision.
Senator Westrom.
Very good, Mr. Chair, and we can continue the discussions. That large number kind of shocked me. I know we've been arguing in the past over 5 and 6%, but just was surprised with a 10% number. So we can talk more on it, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that as something that jumped out at me as we were going through these documents. Seemed quite high. So
I would agree, Senator, and I'm sure we'll take a deeper look at that. And I would agree too that the tradition has been 6.5, and now we're talking 7.5, and all of a sudden now we're looking at 10%. Any other questions or comments? Senator Westrom, we missed the introduction, so tell us where you're from, your background, and a little bit about your ag background.
Very good, Mr. Chair. Senator Tory Westrom from Senate District 12, Central and Western Minnesota, Stearns County, on the east side of my district, all the way through Alexandria, Glenwood, Morris, Benson, out to Big Stone County on the South Dakota border. Grew up on a farm and served as the ag chair for 6 years in the Senate, served as the minority lead on Senator Putnam's committee now, and that's my brief background, a business owner when we're not here in session.
Very good. Thank you very much. We are not going to take any oral testimony except for one very important person. We're going to allow Ag Commissioner Peterson to come on up and tell us how good the bill is and tell us to quickly pass it. Welcome, Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for the record, my name is Tom Peterson, and I serve as Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to tell you how great both bills are, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, and members. Actually, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and for the targets that both bills got, you know, and there's a lot of talk around here, even in the agency, I really appreciate the work that both bodies put into putting these bills together, and those were reflected with strong bipartisan votes in both bodies as we look at that. You know, and you know, as we look at that, those bills being developed, we really appreciate many of the governor's priorities that were put in those bills, and the big piece of it, of course, is always our operating adjustment as we look at costs. That's reflected in the same in both bodies. The other piece that we've talked about is the the spending in support for our ag emergency account, something that we've always talked to you about having, and our legislators always supported our agency and the Board of Animal Health and having a good, strong fund as we really deal with the unknown. Kind of a quick update on that too is that as we go into this, it's been kind of quiet for avian influenza. We've had one backyard case, which was kind of a weird case, and then one dairy case, which was also kind of an odd case since we've been in the legislature. And both in Stearns County, by the way, so Senator Putnam, but always leading the way. But, you know, as we look at that, you know, the concern is, again, in Stearns County, we have a wastewater, you know, detection. Actually, in Olmsted County, we've had wastewater detection. So we know the virus is around, we know it's circulating. What always concerns us is probably a couple of times a week, I get like a notification from our folks that there's a suspect flock, there's a suspect herd, you know, and luckily, I feel like those always come on Friday afternoon too, so we'll see what happens today. But lately, they've been negative, which is good. But when we look at what's happened in Idaho, for example, right now, it was California, now it's in Idaho where the H5N1 has been spreading, you know, through their dairy herd, you know, and again, a lot of their dairy herds are contracting that virus, and then it also spreads to poultry. And that's, again, what we really are concerned about. Does that develop? And again, that developed in Minnesota last summer. And this year's been kind of shaping up on the poultry side more like 23, where we didn't have any cases. We had 2 backyard cases in the spring, but then we got hit hard in the poultry in the fall. So, but my point is having those dollars available is very helpful. One other piece, and I'd say the USDA has been really focused on, is biosecurity. Both bills have that. We've invested in that. It's something that we put dollars in. I feel that the federal government is also going to make some dollars available, and we may be seeing that in the poultry side and the dairy, in that our biosecurity is really ramped up. So we really appreciate that those dollars have been put in and brought forward. Other pieces that are an issue that I hear a lot about from farmers is the elk and wolf depredation accounts. And again, talking to farmers who, as the department is behind on payments because of we've had, you know, too much elk damage, too many wolf kills. You know, when farmers call me or I see them at the sale barn yesterday, I have to tell them, you're going to have to wait to get paid till 1st of July, and then we're going to be behind again in our payments. So I appreciate the work that you've done, and know too that we, the department has put in for a federal grant for that too, would help on the wolf side, and so we're working with our congressional delegation. Hope that we could get some dollars again there that would help us catch up on payments, but it also may help us with our preventative, but that's just on the wolf side. But there's no guarantee on that as we go forward. Also, farm safety and mental health, critical investments for a small amount of money. Mr. Chairman, it's something you've worked on for many years and made sure that we have those dollars for our rollover protection and our grain bin protection, but also our hotline. We fund our dollars for the hotline, which is incredibly important through that piece as well. Another piece that both bodies address are issues we've had with USDA cuts with a different new administration with meat inspection. And be clear, it wasn't just this current administration, but also the previous administration had cut back on meat processing, meat inspection grants that flow to our state, which puts us behind. This committee, since I've been commissioner, has invested a lot in growing our meat processing industry. But that doesn't do any good if we don't have inspectors and the plants can't run because there's not somebody there to inspect it. So we got to always work with that hand in hand. And in my time here, we've always appreciated the support we've got from our state to help our state inspected plants so that those plants can run and have time. And so I appreciate the help into that as we go forward, as well as the local food purchasing assistance program. That has been a great program as I travel the state and meet with our fruit and vegetable farmers, with our newer farmers, but that local food purchasing program is used in all parts of the state. And a lot of that, too, is also meat or protein. We have cattle farmers that are selling directly to some of these where they're buying boxes, and those have really created some new opportunities. So I'm excited about that, and I think Minnesota can lead the nation in showing state investment in that I actually think will help leverage some federal dollars eventually. A couple other pieces we just want to mention we want to work with the committee on is our food licensing and modernization and updates to our grain storage license facilities. Both of these programs really haven't been updated in 20 years. How they serve the public, how we serve Minnesotans when they go to get a license, whether it's a food business and you're a food truck and you have other things and you need to get 3 licenses. The idea behind that is to rework that so that the Minnesotans that are engaging in those business have a better business quality experience. And that's what we brought forward, and we do appreciate that that is in the Senate. That also goes with the grain inspection as we look at that piece too. Hasn't been updated in 20 years. The model, the delivery has changed. And we can keep doing what we're doing, but we have an older and antiquated system. And so we always want to bring forward things that'll serve the public better, but also protect Minnesotans in moving forward with that. Finally, I think I'll just leave it at that. We really appreciate the Senate bill does have a lot more language in it that some of it, you can say is more controversial or bigger things in it, but it also has some things in it that just help our agency run better. So you heard things about the RFA. I think it was like 6-7 pages. You guys did a great job getting through those. They might see like minor changes, but they just help us, run our agency better. There's a lot of livestock marketing pieces in there, again, that I hope that you consider. I know a lot of times they'll say it's finance bill, no policy, but they're a lot of times finance pieces that don't have a policy impact, but they, again, just help our agency do better. Again, appreciate working with you and all of you. We stand ready as our staff to answer questions about any of these provisions at any time, and hopefully that we can get done in a timely manner as we have in the past with agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Peterson? Representative Burkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Just a couple things quick. I just want to reiterate, and for everyone's, if you noticed, we're not talking about avian influenza as much this year. I think a lot of that has to do with what the Board of Animal Health has done and biosecurity plans in the state. So I want to thank the Board of Animal Health and the Commissioner for that. There's a whole section, I don't know if members of the committee have noticed, but on seed potatoes. And I know, Commissioner Peterson, we've met with folks up north, but there's some concerns about the policy changes there and what's going on. And I don't know if you want to address that, but I do have concerns back home with folks that have some issues with what's going on seed potatoes.
We'll be taking that up, but Commissioner Peterson?
Mr. Chair and Representative Burkle, and yeah, and again, it's another piece where try to make everybody happy, and it's hard not to sometimes try to get that in. But the majority, again, it kind of needs to be updated, those boundaries. Where again, for those of you that are not potato experts, I'm not either. I've learned a lot about potatoes, but there's kind of boundaries about and protection zones about where those seed potatoes are grown. There's different areas in Minnesota, and these changes, I would say, are supported by a strong majority of the growers in the region. Many of them are in Representative Burke. Most of them, in fact, and there are going to be 1 or 2 that are going to be affected by these changes, and we're continuing to work through that, and glad to meet with you more as we go through this, but we do think this would be a good update for the process. We would also have some time to implement this. Wouldn't be right away this year. We could move into and have some time to work on this too as well, but understand, and it's been something we've been working on, meeting with the growers up in that area for quite a while, and we can continue to adapt to that too as well.
follow-up, Representative? No.
I'm good, thanks.
I'd like to hear, if we have time, hear from our chairs, Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to briefly thank Commissioner Peterson, not just for being the world's best commissioner, not just for being the hardest working man in Minnesota politics, but also for your assistance in processes like these, figuring out the best way to come up with policies and provisions that actually work for the people of Minnesota. But I do want to ask you one quick question, because reading in between the lines in your testimony, it's clear that you like the Senate position better. So could you, just for the record, make it clear that you like the Senate better than the House?
Gee, we're running out of time here. Let's go to Chair Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe to bring it back outside of this room, but you know, it's a very disrupted world outside of this Capitol right now, and both in agriculture but overall. And so I hope when we get targets, we can move efficiently and effectively and get a good bill out to serve the people of Minnesota, all the people.
Thank you, Chairman. I might as well throw a few words out there too. And Commissioner, you talked about key people in processing and things. And I would just like to take a second to talk about veterinarians, especially large animal veterinarians. I heard from a vet up in the Stearns County area that a practice had been bought out and they were going to stop servicing large animals and concentrate solely on pets, dogs and cats, that type of thing. And we need to really examine that. There was a slight cut made in the higher ed provision of large animal vet forgiveness, but that is a growing problem, especially in greater Minnesota, that we need more large animal veterinarians. And it's something that we aren't addressing in this bill, but I think it's something that we all should bear in mind, keep in mind. And you know, you talk about things that they do. You have to have a vet to certify your pets going to the county fair. You have to have a veterinarian certify at a sales barn. If we don't have those people, we can't do those things. So it's a key thing out there in our area, and I would encourage all of us to do what we can to encourage large animal veterinarians here in Minnesota. Comment, Mr. Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and yeah, definitely an issue close to my heart. The loan forgiveness program that we've had is a bill that I worked on in my to get that put in my previous career, and because of what you said, what happened, and for all of you that are newer legislators, and it's not a lot of fun to get a call from your county fair on the Monday of their county fair and say the kids might not be able to bring their livestock because we don't have a veterinarian to check them in. Or the sale barn calling and saying we're going to have to cancel the sale for the farmers this week because we don't have a veterinarian. And that's what really pushed that years ago. And at that time, when that loan forgiveness program that's in the higher ed budget was passed, you had to serve be a large animal food grade vet to serve in a underserved area in the state. Well, just about all of Minnesota is an underserved area now. And so as you said, Mr. Chair, I've experienced that firsthand, trying to get a hold of my vet was on vacation last year and I couldn't get a hold of a vet for 100 miles. You know, and then to pay for a vet on a Sunday for a call to come 150 miles, you know, those are tough decisions that farmers make. And so anything that we can do to encourage that, and I do worry about that as we look at, you know, our farm groups and livestock groups are working on that. I'll just make two quick comments. And that other states are investing more and looking in supporting their veterinarians, especially those large animal food grade vets. And then not to be like super big versus small, because we need all of our folks, that as our farms get bigger, those bigger farms too house one veterinarian. So you might graduate from veterinarian school and instead of getting a truck and joining a clinic or hanging out your own shingle, you know, kind of those larger farms, and nothing wrong with that. I might do that too. You know, you can have an office, work 8 to 4:30 and service those. It's those, you know, the majority. And keep in mind, Minnesota has a lot of small farms compared to other states. To have somebody that can run around and get to all those farms is really important. And so luckily there's people that want to do it though. We just had a new large animal vets leave a bigger practice and start in our area. And so really a good thing, but appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Chair.
Any final comments from members? Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just wondering how big of a load you had to haul home after the sales barn? Did you get a few cattle or horses, or how did it go for you?
Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chair, yesterday, the interesting thing, as I do go to if I'm home on Thursdays, I go to the sale barn by me and I go to the hay auction. And yesterday, I thought it was really interesting that we have a lot of hay out in the countryside from last year, and I've never seen hay just left, round bales, that nobody was buying, nothing, $10 for a round bale. Last year at this time, they were about $100. And so kind of interesting when you look at what's out there, and there are round bales everywhere, but a lot of that has to do with our cattle. Cattle prices are a record number right now, and the reason is our cattle numbers are the lowest they've ever been, in my mind. Is one of the key factors of that. And then farmers, have a lot of hay. They had a good season last year, but we don't have the cattle to feed them to. So anything we can do to keep bringing young farmers in, building that cattle herd. It takes a year, to build a new cow. And so we had droughts in 21 and 23, and we had those big sell-offs of cattle. Kind of interesting. So I didn't buy anything yesterday, Senator Westrom, Mr. Chair.
Very good.
Just thought I'd ask. Thanks.
Senator Westrom, final comment? Okay. Yeah, thank you all for being here. The gavel moves to Senator Putnam for his discretion to call our next meeting, but as we mentioned, we don't have a number of target yet. So, Senator, any thoughts on the future?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, it's as clear as mud.
And the House bill is pretty good, too. And I will just leave you with final thought. We've had a good discussion today and a lot of positive things. Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just on that note, is it safe for Senator Putnam to assume it probably wouldn't be before noon or afternoon on Monday that we would meet next?
Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Westrom. I think that is, in general, a safe assumption.
Okay, very good. Okay. We can talk more offline. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm just going to leave you all with one thought. We've had a good discussion today, but and farming is a great occupation. I think all of us are proud to be representing agriculture in Minnesota, but we're going through kind of a down cycle. It's a tough time to show a profit margin in production agriculture. And we got these numbers in 2024, the last year that numbers are available, we have the lowest median net farm income in the past 20 years. And with input costs rising and commodity prices flat or falling, it's a challenge out there for farmers to try to make ends meet. So whatever we can do to assist that, and I've said in our committees, we don't have a checkbook like USDA does, so we can't backfill any losses from Washington, but we need to do what we can to help agriculture flourish in our great state of Minnesota. And with that, members, we are adjourned.